Grow CFO is where finance leaders grow together. Join thousands of like-minded professionals using Grow CFO to access the combined knowledge and experience of the finance leader community. You can join us today at growcfo.net. Hello and welcome to the Grow CFO show. I'm your host, Kevin Appleby, and today I've got a very interesting guest, the CFO of Mozilla, the home of Firefox and the like, Eric Muhlheim. Welcome to the Grow CFO show.
Thanks, Kevin. It's great to be here. I'm excited for this.
Eric, Mozilla, that's a big organization. How did you get to be CFO at Mozilla?
I have a path which is maybe like a number of people you've had on the podcast. I didn't come up through the accounting function. I came up through the finance function. I started my professional career at Morgan Stanley. I was an analyst starting in the M&A department and then in the corporate finance department, focusing on media and technology when I was there, doing things like the acquisition of McCaw Cellular by A&T, one of the initial offerings for America Online, and an initial offering for Gardner Group. After Morgan Stanley, I really wanted to do something that was a little bit closer to the operations of a company. I saw the investment banking function as meeting companies up with capital as opposed to figuring out how to use that capital to build a business. So after business school, I ended up going to Disney, and I was at Disney for about 16 years, the longest stint in my professional career so far. I spent about 8 of those in corporate strategy, working on issues like running the strategic plan for the filmed entertainment group, working on acquisitions and divestitures, and doing some consulting for various aspects of the company operationally to be a thought partner to the leaders of the filmed entertainment group. Then I moved into consumer products, was there for about 8 years, and had the opportunity to actually move to Shanghai to start a business there called Disney English, which was a transition of our licensed business, licensing our characters and content to companies that made English language learning curricula for kids. We turned that into a vertical business for a number of years. And so I was on there.
That is fantastic. So Mickey Mouse was a personal friend.
Mickey Mouse was a personal friend. He was my boss. He paid the bills for me in a lot of ways.
I think that is probably so true when you look at Disney. Still the character that you think of when anybody mentions Disney, even though the operation is so diverse apart from that. So what took you out of Disney, Mozilla?
Well, it was really that Disney English experience. I was effectively the chief financial officer or chief operating officer of that little unit, and it was highly entrepreneurial. I did that for about 3 years and then came back to Disney corporate. And honestly, at that point, once you've been doing a entrepreneurial operation in China and you come back to corporate, you're kind of spoiled for corporate life. So that was really the road out. And I said, okay, what I really want to do when I grow up is do the job I was doing at Disney English, being the CFO, being the thought partner to growing a company, and then set me on the CFO path. For about 10 years, I've been the CFO at various tech organizations. I started out at an education technology company called Helix, moved to advertising technology with Onex, a supply-side programmatic advertising platform. For a couple of years, I was at BuzzFeed in digital media, spent some time doing fractional work. And I think the culmination of a bunch of things led me to Mozilla about 2.5 years ago. And that was a culmination of, on the one hand, there's the technology side, there's the advertising piece, which is essential to the operations of Mozilla in a lot of ways, even though it's not seen that way. And it's like figuring out what it looks like to be the CFO at a company, which is really in some ways a hybrid of a for-profit and non-profit company.
Yeah. So what do you actually do as CFO at Mozilla? What's that role consist of?
What do I do? Well, first of all, you have to understand the structure of Mozilla, which is a really interesting and unique structure. One that there are other companies like Patagonia that are opting this nowadays. But Mozilla is a company that is actually, Mozilla Corporation, for which I'm the chief financial officer, is a subsidiary of the Mozilla Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit here in the United States. So our only shareholder is a nonprofit that has a nonprofit mission, which is really to keep the internet free and open. And because of that, in my role as CFO of Mozilla Corporation, one of my main missions is to make sure that even as we operate as a successful for-profit company, we continue to put people over profits. And so it's an interesting role for a CFO to be in because there's a lot of nonprofit ethos at the company. The company actually, when it started out, the first thing that Mozilla did was Firefox, and that was a smash hit straight out of the gate. And it put the company in a position where they didn't really have to think about how do you become a financially successful, diversified company. So the company didn't build a lot of muscle in how to think of itself as a business. What we've been doing over the course of the past several years has been to build the muscle and build the intuition of the company so that we could become a successful multi-product company. So there's a big educational aspect I have as a CFO of helping the company level itself up to be a multi-product company in this way. And then as the CFO, it's figuring out the right balance between how do we create sustainability in our products while we continue to meet the mission of the company, which is the free and open internet, people before profits. And so we're not trying to maximize every single dollar. What we're trying to do is we're trying to build revenue and generate profit so we can put that profit back into projects and products that meet the mission of the company and help to keep the internet open for people.
Brilliant. Now, that was a very long answer to what I thought was going to be quite an easy question.
It's complicated.
It does bring us into some other stuff that I wanted to talk to you about. And I've been a Mozilla user for, 15 years at least. Firefox, Thunderbird, the email system. But I wouldn't call myself a Mozilla customer because I've never paid you guys a penny. So
that's right.
This is what I don't quite get. Where does Mozilla get its money from?
Well, so if you back up, one of the, I think, things that keeps the internet open for people is the ability to have software that they can use for free. Now, the Firefox browser is powered by a different operating system than is used by Chrome, than is used by Edge, is used by a lot of other browsers. It's underlying it is Gecko. And we, in our role as being a browser that a significant portion of the world's people use, drive web compatibility so that our operating system and our way of having people access the internet is something that companies write to. So by having our own platform, we actually are helping to maintain the freedom of the internet that way. Now, how do we monetize? I monetize through partnerships. We don't run our own search engine. We have on our, what we call the awesome bar, which is the bar that's at the top of your browser. When you type in a search there, it goes to your chosen search partner. And we work with every search provider. We work with Google. We work with Bing. We work with DuckDuckGo. We work with a couple of smaller providers that are based out of the EU, such as Quant and Ecosia. The fundamental economics of the internet on search are based on advertising. In a way, Mozilla has always been in the advertising industry. And search advertising is advertising nonetheless. So for access to the real estate on our search bar, our partners, Google, Bing, etc., who generate money from search revenue in that bar, get a share of that. And that's really the way it works. And so, really, it's your surfing and the work that things that you look at there help to pay your way through advertising.
Makes sense. In the same way as I'd probably get a hold of a copy of Google Chrome and never pay for that because Google will get all the search revenue from whatever I'm putting in.
And the way that you turn on, if you're in the United States, turn on ABC, CBS, any of the free networks. If you're in the UK, I'm sure you're watching the BBC or whatnot, and you're getting a lot of that for free because you're seeing advertisements there as well.
Yeah, so it is completely an advertising model, but you're looking at going beyond that into commercial products. So what sort of commercial products are you putting next to those traditional open source things?
Yeah, well, we have some commercial products, and we're also working hard on diversifying our revenue in other ways. And to speak to the diversification of our revenue in non-pay-for ways, first of all, we are broadening our revenue base beyond search revenue. Inside the browser, if you go to New tab on Firefox, what you'll see is a number of display advertisements. Some of these are tiles that are a combination of some that are sponsored and some things that are based upon your browsing history, because on your local browser, not stored centrally at Mozilla, because we don't want these things, but on your own browser, it knows where you've gone. And so things that you've seen recently will show up as tiles. And then we also, a number of years ago, acquired a company called Pocket, which specializes in content curation. And you'll see below those tiles, there are a number of articles that are recommended for you from interesting publications. I always get sidetracked by them because that's really high quality content. And there are some display advertisements there as well. That page has become a significant source of our revenue and a significant cause of diversification away from search and making us a more stable, maintainable, robust company by having multiple streams of revenue. So that's another form of advertising, but that's suited to increase our overall diversification. Secondly, we've done some acquisitions. We've recently acquired a company called FakeSpot, which is a great use of AI to counter AI. What FakeSpot does, and what it has done over the past, is an extension that will look at products that you're shopping for online, whether it's on Amazon or Walmart or Lowe's or a number of places, and look at the reviews and use AI to determine whether the reviews for those products are actually fake AI generated reviews. And these are things that you maybe oughtn't to buy because they're scammy. And it will send you in the direction of products that have higher reviews. So you can use this to actually basically use AI to improve your shopping experience online. It's a great example of how we're using AI to counter AI and using AI for the sources of good. That can also be an advertising platform and an affiliate revenue platform for us as well. We are going to be integrating that, or we have been integrating that into Firefox over the course of the last 6 months so that it's a native capability of Firefox and turns Firefox into not a neutral plain window onto the web, but a browser that has a slightly sharper point of view, which is really where we want to be. We want to have a point of view on how we keep people safe on the internet. Thirdly, we are doing some direct-to-consumer products. We have a VPN product that's available, Mozilla VPN, and then we are also working on some different products in the privacy and security space. We have a product called Relay, and then we have another product called Monitor. Monitor is really a product that's about determining whether your information has been compromised online and helping you to do things to like that and make that information less transparent to everybody. And we're moving towards creating a capability through Monitor Plus that will help do auto takedown of some of that information on your behalf. But more about that in the future.
I like that because that's going right back to some of the ethos at the start, because Firefox originally was all about privacy, all about protecting your individual identity, whereas some of the other browsers were all about trying to allow things to trace you, allow definite targeting. That is an interesting one. You're still partnering with people like Google. How does that partnership, the way you earn money through that partnership, kind of sit with the ethos of the organization?
It's very much a balance. On the one hand, the Firefox browser continues to be one of the safest and most secure browsers out there. We created a number of innovations that we were the first to market with, and some of the other browsers have followed in our wake, which is one of the things that we want to do. We want to have influence, and we want to use the market share that we have and the usership that we have to move the dialogue in the direction of, again, people over profits. So things like multi-threading different tabs so that one of the tabs that you have in your browser is able to reach into the processes you're doing on another tab and hoover out your personal information that you don't want to share with tab 2 if you've been sharing it, and putting some walls around what is shared with Facebook. Things like that are things that I do all the time. The display advertising that we're doing is principally based on privacy preserving advertising. So more contextual display of ads rather than display of ads that are based upon cookie information that's come through. This is something that we've been pioneering from the start. Search is interesting. People have the opportunity to use any search engine that they want when they are using Firefox. We have partnered with DuckDuckGo for a very long time. DuckDuckGo is a search engine that is highly privacy preserving, and we give people those options. The interesting thing is that people really like Google, and a lot of people will use that despite the fact that they are giving up some degree of personal information to do that. But that's a choice that everybody makes. And that does impact the search results, and there are a lot of people that find that the search results that they get on Google are better than the search results they get elsewhere. So they'll choose to use that and make that trade-off for themselves. Despite that, in the using the browser aspect, we lock it down so you're not giving up personal information that you haven't chosen to give up.
Yeah, still love what you're doing from that point of view. In the things that you're doing, you're relying quite a lot on community support, contributions from community. How do you engage with the community? Is there a role for the CFO in that?
There are a lot of different ways here, and this is the interesting thing about Mozilla. And if you want to learn more about Mozilla, you can go see the State of Mozilla report that we have on the internet, and that goes through a lot of different things that we're doing. So if you think about the structure of Mozilla, At the top, you have the foundation. We are the largest for-profit entity that sits under the foundation. And we've recently launched a couple of other subsidiaries. And this gets to some of the question of building community that you're talking about. So the other entities that are sister organizations that sit alongside us, you have Mozilla, which is the company that runs Thunderbird, as we talked about a little bit, a fantastic web mail client that has a lot of the same ethos that we do on the browsing side. And they are, again, free, and they are largely supported by donations from their users, from a really rabid user community. We have Mozilla Ventures. Mozilla Ventures is a venture fund that's been set up to make investments in companies that have a similar people over profits ethos to Mozilla. And in that way, it's a little bit of a force multiplier for what we're doing to try to create more of a groundswell of small companies that are following the same model. We have Mozilla.ai, and Mozilla.ai is a project that's been set up to work on open source, community-oriented AI projects. Underneath Mozilla Corporation, we have all the things that we're doing inside the company to build our own products. And then we also have a pretty bold and vibrant innovation unit led by Udam. And a lot of the things that we're doing there are about building community and force multiplying underneath Mozilla Corporation. Doing things like last year we had a responsible AI challenge where we brought together small companies that are looking for seed investment, thinkers in the AI space, professors and academics to talk about open AI, to talk about the challenges that AI is creating for the world today and how it can be used for the good of people rather than a centralization of power, which you still see as something that's actually happening in AI right now.
Yeah. Mozilla is a much bigger organization than simply that part that you're the CFO for. So you're very definitely a profit center, supplying a lot of the funds that are going to go into all of the other good things being done elsewhere in a corporation. There's very definitely that people first ethos, but is there some pressure on you that you've got to be profits first because of all the people first stuff that it's got to go and fund?
It's a balance. What I focus on is sustainability, and that's the drum that I've been beating quite strongly so that people understand that we're not about maximizing profits. We're about making the right level of profit and making those profits so that we can put them back into new things. So yes, profits are important, but what's really important is making sure that the projects that we do are projects that can fund themselves in the long run. Of course, any product starts out at investment stage. But then ultimately, you want that product to be self-sustainable and to kick back some more profits so that we can figure out what to do next along those lines. And that's been one of the interesting things that I've been doing over the past couple of years here at Mozilla is building out that infrastructure so that we can be an effective multi-product company. We didn't start that way. Because we were a smash hit out with our first product, the company didn't have to build out that infrastructure from the start. And so when I came here, there wasn't really a repeatable and low effort way for us to actually look at the individual things that we were doing and saying, are these profitable? Are these returning something to the bottom line? And there was a low stress way for us to stage gate investments and say, what is the right amount to be putting against this new opportunity? How do we determine when we get to X amount of investment, whether it's been hitting our objectives, and then decide, okay, now is the time to release funding for this product. We had to do a lot of things. We had to do a lot of things from the system side, where we had to build our systems from the ground up. We transitioned from the ERP that we were using to NetSuite, and NetSuite gave us a lot more capability to start building out different types of dimensions, not just looking at cost centers, but also looking at taxonomies and categories of products and projects. We had to work across the organization to create a low load way for us to make sure that our partners understood that when they were going through the procurement to pay process, that they were putting the right categorization on their invoices and then tracking their people so that when we rolled up our numbers every month, we could actually put them into the right buckets for price. And then create a culture of what is the profitability that we are reporting for each of our products. And again, not because we want to maximize the profit for everything that we're doing, so that we can be responsible stewards of the investments that we're making and make informed strategic decisions about the investments we're making, so that each of the things that we're doing is set on a path to success as opposed to drifting in space.
So Now, on a practical basis, how do you approach budgeting and cost management?
It's like fairly similar to what you'd be doing at any other company. We run the budget every year. We are sharing our actual performance and the projections with our folks and the management team every month. Basically, it's taking the vantage point that we have to be really navigators of the company, which is one of the metaphors that I use for my team, in that we're the ones who are standing on the helm and we can see where we've been, we can see where we are, we can see where we're going. The difference is that at the end of the day, we aren't held to the standard that you would have at a company that's either a public company who's chasing a stock price or a venture backed company that's looking at your burn and like looking at the next round and what valuation you can raise with the investors. And so we can make the decision that in a particular quarter, we're not going to try to increase our EBITDA by 10, 15%. We can say the right thing to do in this period of time is to invest more in our products so that we can make the changes that we need to make, so that we can actually leave a little bit of profit on the table because we're going to increase the level of privacy that we're providing to our users in the browser. We can choose to invest in a new initiative and take some of our EBITDA off the table. And that's okay with our shareholder, the foundation, because that's what they're in the game for. Now, for me as CFO, I'm always focused on how much is left there. What are the risks? What are the potential downsides? Let's make sure that overall we are keeping our EBITDA at a level that is sustainable. Let's look at the stewardship of the resources that we have on our balance sheet, because we have a very strong balance sheet. Make sure that we're maximizing those so that we can really vouchsafe the overall organization balance sheet for the future.
Does that make it hard to say no to people when they're asking for money?
It does. It honestly does. A part of the infrastructure that I've been setting up with the profit by product is one of my bids as CFO to say, here's the way that we're going to measure things now. And once people start to see that, then you can start to have a better conversation about, okay, now that we can measure this, let's start thinking about ourselves as, for instance, a VC. And we can try to align ourselves on base higher principles about what does it look like to be a responsible investor? What does it look like to fund things at various levels? And if you can get everybody on the same page as that, then you're not necessarily talking about people's passion projects in the specifics. And it's always like harder to talk to someone about a passion project than it is about general principles. If you have the general principles in place and can agree upon the way that you're looking at things, then those conversations can be put on more level ground.
Looking forwards, tech industry, rapidly changing. Blockchains, cryptocurrencies, AI in particular. And I'm finding myself going off and asking ChatGPT things that I'd have previously asked Google, changing the way that we're doing things big time. So how are you approaching those emerging technologies? I know you mentioned the AI to check AI, which intrigued me, but are there other things you're doing?
Yeah, we have a pretty big push on AI inside the company. Like I talked about previously, we have funded our sister company, Mozilla.ai, to work on open source AI and work on some fundamental projects there. We're doing a lot of work underneath the EMO's organization on the innovation side to build a larger open source AI community. We think AI is one of the most important things that's happened since we started. In a way, here we are in our 25th year, having done the work that we've done to keep the web open and free. And it's recapitulating itself with AI right now, where the important thing about AI right now is it is a tool that will be used people and is going to change the way that they experience the web, that they experience all technology. And we need to make sure that this technology remains open so that people have access to it, that it is transparent, so that the way that it is suggesting things is audible by people. Because honestly, a lot of the decisions and a lot of the things that AI says right now, some of it's great, a lot of it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. And a lot of it, because it's all based upon statistical aggregation of existing data, it is going to amplify the biases and the patterns that are in that data in the first place and spit them back out to us in a way that if people do not hold it accountable, they will follow it blindly. And that is my greatest concern, honestly. I'm not worried about AI becoming super intelligent and taking it all over. What I am worried about is people trusting AI too much and allowing us to follow our darkest impulses as coded within the system. And then it's accountability. Those are the three things that we're really focused on the AI side. We are going to be making more investments in AI, not just for shopping, but there's some very interesting work that's been done at the movement building level in our innovation group. Something called Llama File was founded a couple of weeks ago and has gotten a big turnout. So we are concerned about AI. We are concerned about how it changes people's access on the web. We are incorporating it into our browser in interesting new ways. And we'll be making big moves here.
And so what are your financial goals and priorities for the next 3 to 5 years? What sort of thing can we expect?
You can expect further revenue diversification. I personally, and a lot of us inside the company, think that display advertising is something that is going to be changing pretty dramatically as people get more concerned about privacy, as deprecation of cookies takes place, as advertisers look to that deprecation of cookies and are realizing that their previous return on investment for their advertising dollar is not as attributable, not as trackable as it's been in the past, and they're looking for better ways to do things. There is a flavor in the air for privacy preserving advertising. And Mozilla, in the way that we do our own advertising on our browser, has an opportunity to make that better, increase our revenue there, but also to demonstrate a better way and demonstrate how people can actually get value from that on the web. So that's something that we are very focused on. We are making investments there to both from a product basis and from a simple block and tackle of business basis. We can do a better job there. And that's something that's going to be increasing our diversification. AI is a place where we are focused, and that is a place where there's revenue growth available to us. And then in my role as CFO, it really is about making sure that the investments that we make there are sustainable and add to the ultimate bottom line of the company so that we can do more things and hopefully EBITDA at a level that's solid to go forward. There's also continuing to steward our assets on behalf of the company and to make that balance sheet work for us and return value that allows us to fund more things. I think the foundation is very focused on building those out. There's a lot of work that's been done to promote 25th anniversary of Mozilla 25, and the different activities that people can take part in as part of Mozilla. We put these under sort of three rubrics. It's choosing Mozilla as your browser of choice and as your product of choice. There's building with Mozilla. That's the community building aspect. That's what we're doing with Mozilla AI. That's what we're doing with Mozilla Ventures. And then there's acting. There's acting on the movement building activities that the foundation does at the top level.
Yeah. And I guess there's some element of trying to work out the winners to back, because when technology changes so rapidly, my experience is you see three different ways of doing the same thing. And one of them, not necessarily always the technically best solution, comes out as the winner.
That's why you have a portfolio, right? That's why you make lots of bets. And there's some bets that are going to work out, and there are some things, and there are things that we do that as an open source company at our foundation, there are things that we do that may not be great commercial businesses for us as Mozilla, and you will choose to set those free. There are things that we do that will contribute to the web going forward, and they don't need to be things that we run in the future, and that's fine.
Fascinating. Eric, before we started talking, I was looking at your LinkedIn profile. It says under Chief Financial Officer at Mozilla, it says full-time. But I look further down your profile. It said owner, HIH BizWorks, founding members, Journey CXO, member of the Board of Advisors, Deep Knowledge Investing, and probably most fascinating, owner and brewmaster at HLH Eastworks. How do you find time to do Mozilla full-time?
Well, some of these things, HLH BizWorks that's the company that I did my fractional CFO with. So that's there, but I'm honestly not doing a great deal there because Mozilla keeps me pretty busy.
I'd imagine.
The brewing thing, I picked up home brewing as a hobby during the pandemic because when one is stuck at home with a lot of free time, one needs to find a hobby that takes a lot of time and can be done at home. And I fell deep down the home brewing rabbit hole, and I find it amusing to portray myself as a company, even though it's a hobby for me. But you can go to my website that I've built there, and you can see my little gallery of labels for the different beers that I've generated, all of which have a story behind them. And I amuse myself with the art that I commission people to make for me.
Brilliant. Do you just brew for yourself or do you sell it?
I can't sell it. I'm not allowed to. Our business model, maybe it's a little bit like Mozilla. Our business model is share, not sell. So if you ever find yourself in LA, I'm by and I'll give you a 6-pack of curiously labeled beers.
Yeah, I've got a very good friend here in the UK living locally to us. We're in a very rural part of the UK, literally next to the Scottish border. So my friend Sam founded the first and last brewery. So if you're coming from Scotland, it's the first brewery in England, or if you're going the other way, it's the last brewery in England. But they've set up from nothing, and they're doing things actually to reasonable commercial success with some really lovely beers. My favourite is very definitely founded around American beer as well.
I made a lovely best bitter that had some Earl Grey tea in it as well as orange zest. It was quite nice.
I could sense that we could go off talking beer for the next half an hour, so we'd probably better not on a finance podcast, Eric.
That's an entirely different podcast if you want to go in.
Entirely different podcast. But just rounding right back, now within Grow CFO, we run a future CFO program, and we pulled together part of the work around that. We pulled together a report that looked at 500 CFOs and the route that they took to get to CFO. You came out of a finance background rather than accounting background. If you're advising anybody that's starting out on the route to CFO, would you say an accounting background or a finance background would give you the best experience?
I really don't want to make a decision there for people because I think you can do it either way. I will say that in my role as CFO, I think the three most important things that I help provide are, as I've said before, it's that navigation. First of all, it's being at the helm and seeing where we've been, where we are, where we're going. The second is the storytelling, because when we're in the finance function or the accounting function, we speak numbers. I'm always more comfortable with a spreadsheet of numbers than I am with a pie graph, but we're the ones who understand them. And it's our responsibility and our privilege in a lot of ways to be able to tell a story that comes out of those numbers and interpret those numbers for somebody else. And then it's being a thought partner. It's being a thought partner for the other people inside the organization. Finance view is not the only point of view. There are other strong points of view there. I always say that people and money are the two things that make an organization work. And so from the vantage point that we have, our goal is to be a team player and contribute to the overall team from our point of view. For me, coming from the finance side, it was really about telling the story and making the argument. That's what you did as an investment banker, where you built the models and then made the argument with those models as to, okay, here's going to be your rate of return. Here's why this investment makes sense. Here's why you should put your money in this place. For me, that was a great path into the CFO function, particularly if you have my particular focus. I learned enough about accounting along the way. I count and rely upon my accounting department to tell me what the rules and regulations are, but I know enough to be dangerous and I have enough of a instinct for understanding why things need to be done a particular way. But for me, like the finance path was a very useful path and it like actually put me in the direction of that type of value that I'm adding in there. If you're coming from the accounting side, you can do that also. It's just a matter of figuring out how you add that value and how you build the set of skills that are more on the storytelling direction.
It's probably fair to say that you learn those skills by experience and doing stuff.
Yeah.
One of those top three things that you mentioned there are things that you would learn in passing any sort of exams to become whatever it was you became originally.
I think all those exams, all that education that you do, that is all your toolkit, right? And the question is, what do you build with that toolkit? And that's the important thing. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing that beats life experience. Part of the reason why, at the end of the day, I believe that AI is quite limited because AI, while it's a statistical aggregation of a lot of things that people have done, that's very much like the toolkit. It's not real lived experience.
Absolutely. It doesn't have save some time sometimes, though. So if you're writing a course in, say, our world, and you previously delivered it in a classroom with a set of PowerPoint slides and a whole load of bullet points on, it's amazing how you can turn that into a course by feeding those bullet points into the AI engine and saves you doing a heck of a lot of writing yourself.
Oh, totally. But then you got to check what it says. Because
absolutely.
It's likely to tell you something that's entirely wrong along the way just because it sounds good, right?
Yeah. And like you, I've got a hobby space that's got absolutely nothing to do with work. And mine's more railroading. And I put things into ChatGPT about that, and they're rubbish. But it seems to know loads of things about marketing, loads of things about business strategy, but ask it something really specialist, it just starts making answers up.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, look yourself up sometime and see the garbage that it writes about you. I'm sure it'll like start saying you went to universities you never went to and things you never did. And there's like a famous professor who in ChatGPT told the world that he had a pet chicken named Henrietta. So never know what it comes up with.
Fantastic. Now I'm challenged to go off and do that after we finish talking.
But that's
Eric,
why we focused on the security there, because again, we need to figure out the way to make AI accountable.
absolutely. And I think that you folk at Mozilla Corporation are doing some fantastic work to keep the web the way it should be. Eric, thank you for being this week's guest on the Grow CFO Show.
Thank you, Kevin. This was a fantastic conversation. I really enjoyed it.